In the vastness of the galaxy, the Xeron Empire spread across countless star systems like a plague of darkness. The year was 5000 Alpha, when interstellar travel had reached its zenith and the technologies of destruction had been perfected to an art form. At the far western edge of the Omega Belt, a ceremony was taking place, one that would showcase the might and terror of the Empire to all who dared witness it. Emperor Xeron stood on the command bridge of his flagship, the Eternal Dominion. His posture was rigid, face emotionless as he gazed at the view screen displaying the planet Seraphis below, a world of blue oceans and emerald continents, inhabited by a civilization that had just discovered space travel. Perfect for today's demonstration. Your Majesty. General Vrax bowed deeply, his armored exoskeleton whirring with the movement. The orbital cannons are calibrated and awaiting your command. The War Council is assembled in the observation deck to witness your glory. Emperor Xeron didn't immediately respond. He studied the planet below, feeling nothing but cold detachment. For generations, his bloodline had conquered worlds and extinguished civilizations as a form of entertainment. War games, they called it. It was tradition, a rite of passage, a means to demonstrate power. Commence the bombardment, Xeron finally said, his voice devoid of emotion. I want this to be memorable. Use the new quantum disruptors. I wish to see if they perform as promised. As he turned to leave the bridge, the massive cannons of the Imperial fleet lit up the darkness of space. Beams of concentrated energy tore through Seraphis's atmosphere, carving deep gouges into the planet's surface. Xeron felt nothing as he watched cities crumble and oceans boil. This was power, absolute and unquestioned. This was what it meant to be emperor. In the observation deck, Xeron was greeted by thunderous applause from his generals and war ministers. They raised golden chalices filled with rare spirits to toast his name. Long live Emperor Xeron, terror of 1,000 worlds, they chanted in unison. Xeron took his seat on the mobile throne at the center of the deck, accepting the adulation with practiced indifference. These displays had long since ceased to provide him any real pleasure. They were simply expected. Your father would be proud, whispered High Commander Titus, an ancient veteran who had served 3 generations of Xeron's family. This will make an excellent addition to the war archives. Xeron nodded slightly, watching the destruction unfold on the massive view screen that dominated the wall. Something caught his attention, a peculiar signal emanating from the planet's core. It wasn't the usual energy signature of a civilization's last-ditch defense mechanism or a hidden weapon. This was something different. Magnify that quadrant, he commanded, pointing to a spot where a strange light was emanating from the fracturing planet. The view screen zoomed in, focusing on a beam of light shooting out from the planet's cracking crust. Within that beam, something impossible was happening. What am I seeing? Xeron demanded, rising from his throne. The AI system Orion responded in its cold, mechanical voice. Analysis indicates a biogenesis event occurring within a protected energy field. Probability calculation suggests this is a birth taking place in the vacuum of space, protected by unknown technology. Xeron stared in disbelief. Within the light, a small form was taking shape, a newborn creature of some kind, surrounded by a cocoon of energy that protected it from the vacuum and destruction all around. It was being born, literally, amidst the stars and the death of its world. For the first time in his life, Emperor Xeron felt something stir within his chest. It wasn't triumph or satisfaction. It was curiosity, wonder, concepts foreign to a man raised only for conquest. Cease bombardment, he commanded suddenly. The generals looked at him in confusion. Your Majesty, General Vrax questioned. The demonstration is only half complete. We have not yet showcased the molecular disassemblers. I said cease, Xeron repeated, his voice sharp as a blade. And I want all records of this phenomenon, classified at the highest level. No one speaks of what we witnessed here. The generals exchanged concerned glances but obeyed without question. The bombardment stopped, leaving Seraphis broken but not completely destroyed. Dispatch a research vessel to investigate that energy signature. Xeron continued. I want to know what we're dealing with. As the observation deck emptied, Xeron remained alone, staring at the image of the infant being born amidst destruction. Something about it disturbed him deeply. Throughout his reign, he had only ever witnessed endings, the death of worlds, the extinction of species. But this was a beginning, a life emerging from chaos. Why did it affect him so? The research vessel, Quantum Seeker, departed immediately for the coordinates around Seraphis. Xeron had personally selected the team, scientists and military personnel who could be trusted with absolute secrecy. Among them was Commander Maya, a seasoned medical officer known for her expertise in xenobiology. Maya had never approved of the Empire's war games. She had joined the Imperial forces hoping to use her medical knowledge to help, but found herself instead patching up soldiers only so they could return to causing more destruction. The assignment to study the Seraphis phenomenon was her first real opportunity to preserve rather than destroy. When the Quantum Seeker arrived at Seraphis, the planet was in ruins. Continents had been fractured, oceans were still boiling in places, and the atmosphere was a toxic soup of chemicals. But the energy signature persisted, a small beacon of light amidst the devastation. We've located the source, reported the ship's captain. It's emanating from what appears to be an ancient temple structure that somehow survived the bombardment. Maya led the expedition team to the surface, wearing protective suits against the hostile environment. The temple was unlike anything she had seen before, constructed of a material that seemed to absorb and redirect energy, perhaps explaining how it had survived. Inside, at the heart of the structure, they found it, a small, glowing cocoon of energy. Within it, a childlike being floated peacefully, its features not fully formed, but distinctly humanoid. It's in a state of suspended animation, Maya whispered, scanning the phenomenon with her instruments. The genetic structure is evolving before our eyes. It's like watching accelerated evolution. Something inside Maya rebelled against her orders. She was supposed to collect data and samples, then destroy the site as per Imperial protocol for unusual discoveries. Instead, she found herself preserving genetic material from the infant, secretly storing it away. When the team returned to the Quantum Seeker with their findings, Maya filed an official report that omitted her preservation of the genetic material. She knew she was committing treason, but something about the infant, born literally among the stars, had awakened something in her that was stronger than fear. Back at the Imperial Palace on the capital world, Emperor Xeron reviewed the findings with growing fascination. The data showed that the infant was not merely a survivor of the bombardment, it had actually been born because of it. The energy released had somehow catalyzed a dormant genetic process that had been waiting millennia for the right conditions. I want to see it, Xeron declared. Bring Commander Maya to me. She will explain this phenomenon in person. When Maya arrived at the palace, she expected to be executed. Her unauthorized preservation of genetic material had surely been discovered. Instead, she found the Emperor alone in his private laboratory, surrounded by holographic projections of the Seraphis infant. Commander, Xeron acknowledged her presence without looking up. Explain to me how this is possible, a birth in space, amid destruction. It defies everything we know. Maya chose her words carefully. Your Majesty, the Seraphians appear to have evolved a fail-safe mechanism, a final way to ensure their species survives even planetary destruction. The child is being born of their collective genetic material, preserved and activated by the energy of our weapons. So we created it? Xeron asked, finally turning to face her. No, Your Majesty. We triggered it. They created it, as a form of hope, perhaps. A way to ensure that even if their civilization ended, something of them would continue. Maya took a risk. Using the genetic material she had preserved, she activated a simulation that showed the complete birth process as it would unfold over time. The holographic display filled the laboratory, a child forming in stages, surrounded by stars. Xeron watched in silence, his face unreadable. When the simulation ended, he remained still for a long moment. This changes things, he finally said, so quietly Maya barely heard him. Your Majesty. Leave me, he commanded, but remain on the capital. I may have further questions. As Maya departed, Ziron turned back to the holographic image, frozen on the final stage of the infant's development. For the first time in his life, he had witnessed creation instead of destruction, and it had awakened questions he had never before considered. The following weeks saw a change in the emperor that puzzled the imperial court. He canceled scheduled war games, spent hours in his private laboratory, and summoned xenobiologists from across the empire for consultations. The War Council grew concerned. Your Majesty, General Vrax finally confronted him during a private audience. The fleet stands ready for the demonstration in the Cygnus sector. 3 potential target worlds await your selection, yet you have not given the order to proceed. Ziron regarded his general coldly. Are you questioning my decisions, General? Never, Your Majesty. Vrax bowed deeply. I merely seek to understand how best to serve your will. My will, Ziron repeated, is that the demonstration be postponed indefinitely. Whispers spread throughout the imperial palace. Had the emperor grown weak? Was he ill? Some spoke of conspiracy, of possible usurpation. The traditions of the Ziron dynasty had remained unchanged for thousands of years. War was their art. Destruction, their legacy. Prince Elar, Ziron's second son, sought out Commander Maya. Unlike his father, Elar had always shown a softer disposition, one that had earned him disdain from the military elite. Commander, he addressed her in the palace gardens, away from prying ears. What happened on Seraphis? What did my father see that has changed him so? Maya hesitated. Your Highness, I am under strict orders not to discuss the mission. I am not asking as a prince, Elar said quietly. I am asking as someone who has always believed there could be more to our empire than destruction. Please. Something in his sincerity moved Maya. She showed him a small holographic projection of the stellar birth, contained in a device on her wrist. Elar's eyes widened. Life, born among destruction. Yes, Maya whispered, and your father has been studying it obsessively since our return. This could change everything, Elar said, hope evident in his voice. If my father sees value in creation rather than destruction. Their conversation was interrupted by the palace alarms. An emergency session of the United Alliance, the gathering of all planetary governors within the empire, had been called by the emperor himself. The Grand Assembly Hall was filled to capacity when Emperor Ziron entered. He wore not his usual battle armor, but simpler robes of state. The murmuring crowd fell silent as he took his place at the center of the speaking platform. For generations, Ziron began, his voice echoing through the vast chamber. The Ziron dynasty has ruled through fear and destruction. We have called it tradition. We have called it strength. He paused, looking out over the assembled dignitaries. I have called it necessary. A confused murmur rippled through the crowd. Today, I decree a change. Ziron continued. The resolution to destroy what remains of Seraphis is hereby rescinded. Furthermore, I declare the entire sector a protected zone, under the direct protection of the Imperial Crown. The War Council members looked at each other in shock. General Vrax stood abruptly. Your Majesty, he called out, breaking protocol. This is unprecedented. The war games are the foundation of our power, the demonstration of our might to all who would oppose us. Is fear the only foundation upon which power can rest, General? Ziron asked, his voice dangerous. Is destruction the only demonstration of strength? Before Vrax could respond, Maya stepped forward, defying all protocol. If I may, Your Majesty. Without waiting for permission, she activated a projection device that displayed the stellar birth for all to see, the infant forming amidst the stars, a miracle of life among destruction. Gasps and murmurs filled the hall. Some council members recoiled in disgust. Others leaned forward in fascination. What abomination is this? Demanded High Commander Titus, rising from his seat. Not an abomination, Xeron replied calmly. A beginning. Something we have never bothered to witness before. General Vrax's face contorted with rage. This sentiment is weakness. The Emperor has been compromised. In an instant, the assembly erupted into chaos. Loyal Imperial guards moved to protect the Emperor as Vrax and several War Council members drew weapons. The conflict that had been brewing beneath the surface finally exploded into open rebellion. Secure the Emperor, shouted the captain of the guard as blaster fire erupted across the chamber. Maya found herself pulled aside by Prince Elar as fighting broke out. We need to get my father to safety, he urged. The extremist faction has been planning this for weeks. They believe he's grown weak, unfit to rule. Through the chaos of the fighting, they managed to escort Emperor Xeron to his personal shuttle bay. The sounds of battle echoed throughout the palace as loyalist forces engaged the rebels. We have prepared a vessel, Your Majesty, Elar explained as they ran. It will take you to the Quantum Fortress until we can secure the capital. Xeron stopped suddenly. No, I will not flee from traitors in my own palace. He turned to Maya. Commander, the genetic material you preserved from Seraphis. Where is it? Maya's eyes widened in surprise. You knew? I know everything that happens in my empire, Xeron replied with the ghost of a smile. Where is it? In my laboratory, secured in a stasis field. Then that is where we go. Despite the protests of his guards, Xeron insisted on diverting to Maya's laboratory. Once there, he ordered the genetic material to be transferred to a portable containment unit. This, he said, holding the small glowing container, is what they fear. Not because it is dangerous, but because it represents change. The rebellion spread quickly through the capital. Fleet commanders were forced to choose sides, those loyal to the Emperor and his new vision, and those who believed in maintaining the old ways of war and destruction. Space battles erupted in orbit around the capital world as ships fired upon one another. Aboard his flagship, now surrounded by loyal vessels, Emperor Xeron watched the conflict unfold. He had never intended civil war, but perhaps it was inevitable. Change never came easily to empires built on bloodshed. Your Majesty, the communications officer called out. General Vrax is broadcasting on all frequencies. Vrax's face appeared on the main view screen, his expression one of righteous fury. Citizens of the Xeron Empire, hear me. Your emperor has been corrupted by foreign influence. He would have us abandon our traditions, our strength. He would have us nurture alien abominations instead of demonstrating our power. I, General Vrax, with the backing of the War Council, declare Emperor Xeron unfit to rule. All loyal ships, all true warriors of the Empire, rally to our banner. Xeron watched the message without visible emotion, though inside he felt a cold anger building. Not at the betrayal, he had expected that, but at the realization of what his empire truly was. What he had made it. A civilization that knew only how to destroy, never to create or preserve. Prepare a response, he commanded. All frequencies, all worlds. When the signal was ready, Xeron stood before the camera, the containment unit with the Seraphis genetic material visible beside him. People of the Xeron Empire, he began, his voice strong and clear. For generations, we have defined strength through destruction. I myself have ordered the annihilation of countless worlds in the name of tradition and power. But true power, true strength, lies not in what we can destroy, but in what we can protect. He gestured to the containment unit. This is what General Vrax and his supporters fear. Not a weapon, but a beginning. A life born among the stars even as its world died. It showed me something I had never before considered, that creation is more remarkable, more worthy of our attention than destruction could ever be. The battle raged for days. Ships exploded in silent bursts of fire against the backdrop of space. Planetary defense systems activated as rebel forces attempted landings. Through it all, Emperor Xeron commanded his loyal forces with the same tactical brilliance he had once applied to destroying civilizations. The tide turned when Prince Elar led a daring assault on the rebels' command ship. In a desperate gamble, he managed to capture General Vrax himself, effectively decapitating the rebellion's leadership. With Vrax in custody and rebel forces in disarray, the fighting gradually subsided. The cost had been enormous. Thousands dead, ships destroyed, and deep divisions created within the Empire. But Xeron had prevailed. In the aftermath, Emperor Xeron brought Commander Maya and the Seraphis genetic material to his private quarters in the partially damaged Imperial Palace. The laboratory there had been expanded, now filled with equipment dedicated to nurturing and studying the developing life form. It grows stronger each day, Maya reported, monitoring the readings on the containment unit. Soon, it will complete its development cycle. Xeron studied the small form floating in the nutrient bath. It looked more defined now, humanoid but with distinct differences that marked its alien origin. "It will need a name," he said quietly. Maya looked up in surprise. Naming was an intimate act, one usually reserved for family. "Yes, Your Majesty." The Seraphians had a complex naming system based on stellar positions at birth. "No." Xeron shook his head. "Not a Seraphian name, a new name for a new beginning." He considered for a moment. "Novalis, it means new star in the ancient tongue." "Novalis," Maya repeated, smiling. "It's perfect." Over the following months, as the Empire slowly healed from the civil conflict, Xeron spent increasing amounts of time in the laboratory with Maya and Prince Elar, watching as Novalis developed. The being was growing rapidly, its consciousness beginning to form. The AI system Orion, which had been reprogrammed to assist in Novalis's development, reported unusual patterns in the being's neural activity. "The subject appears to be accessing genetic memory," Orion reported. "Data suggests it is inheriting not just physical traits, but cultural and historical knowledge from the Seraphian collective." "Will it remember the destruction of its world?" Elar asked, concerned. "Unknown," Orion replied. "But probability suggests some trauma imprint is inevitable." This troubled Xeron deeply. The idea that his actions, his order to bombard Seraphis, would be the first memory this new life carried, filled him with something he had never experienced before. Remorse. "Can we alter the memories?" he asked Maya. "Remove the trauma?" Maya shook her head. "Memory isn't just stored in the brain. Your Majesty, it's encoded in every cell. We could try, but we might damage other aspects of Novalis's development. The best we can do is be present when awareness fully develops, to explain, to provide context." "To ask forgiveness," Xeron added quietly. The day Novalis opened its eyes for the first time, only Xerine, Maya, and Elar were present. The being's eyes were unlike any they had seen before, iridescent, shifting colors like the surface of a soap bubble, reflecting the stars themselves. Novalis looked at each of them in turn, its gaze lingering longest on Xeron. When it spoke, its voice was melodious and strange, yet perfectly understandable. "Emperor," it said simply. Xeron stepped forward. "I am Emperor Xeron. Yes." "You destroyed my world," Novalis stated without emotion. "Yet you preserved me. Why?" The directness of the question caught Xeron off guard. He had prepared speeches, explanations, justifications. None of them seemed adequate now. "Because you showed me that I was wrong," he said finally. "Wrong about what gives life meaning. Wrong about what power truly is." Novalis considered this. "My people believed that destruction and creation were not opposites, but parts of the same cycle. One cannot exist without the other." Its gaze seemed to look through Xerine, into his very soul. "You have known only one half of that cycle. Now you begin to learn the other." In the years that followed, the Xeron Empire transformed. With Novalis's guidance and Xeron's determination, a new organization was formed, the Birth Alliance, dedicated to protecting emerging civilizations throughout the galaxy rather than destroying them. The change was not easy. Many within the Empire resisted, clinging to the old ways. Some planetary governors seceded, forming their own militant factions. But for each world that left, others, previously neutral or hostile systems, sought to join the reformed empire. Xeron himself changed perhaps most of all. The cold, detached tyrant who had ordered the destruction of countless worlds became a protector, a guardian of new life. He worked closely with Maya, whose medical expertise proved invaluable in understanding and nurturing different forms of life throughout the galaxy. "We've detected another emerging civilization," Maya reported one day, years later. "A small world in the Andromeda sector. They've just developed rudimentary spaceflight." In the past, such a discovery would have prompted a war game, a demonstration of imperial might through destruction. Now, it triggered a different protocol. "Send an observation team," Xeron commanded. "No contact yet. We don't want to interfere with their natural development, but I want defensive satellites in place. If anyone attempts to harm them..." "Already done, Your Majesty." Maya smiled. She had anticipated his order. "Prince Elar is personally overseeing the protective detail." Xeron nodded, pleased. His son had become a staunch advocate for the new direction of the empire, often serving as an ambassador to newly discovered civilizations. Later that evening, Xeron stood on the balcony of the imperial palace, gazing up at the stars. So many points of light, each potentially harboring life he had once seen only as targets for destruction. Now, he saw possibilities, potential, futures unfolding. He sensed a presence beside him and turned to find Novalis there. The being had grown to full maturity, its form both alien and familiar, radiating a subtle light that seemed to come from within. "You're troubled, Emperor," Novalis observed. "I was thinking about all the worlds I destroyed before Seraphis," Xeron admitted. "All the potential lost forever because of me." "The past cannot be undone," Novalis said gently. "But the future is still unwritten. And in saving me, you saved more than you know." "What do you mean?" Novalis gestured to the stars above them. "The Seraphians were collectors of knowledge, preservers of wisdom. In my genetic memory, I carry the histories, technologies, and arts of not just my people, but hundreds of civilizations they studied and preserved. Some of those civilizations were destroyed by the Xeron Empire generations ago." Xeron felt a weight lift from his shoulders. Not absolution, he would never fully escape the burden of his past actions, but perhaps the possibility of redemption. "There is something I've been meaning to tell you," Novalis continued. "Something I discovered in my genetic memories that you should know." "What is it?" "The energy signature that protected me during my birth. It wasn't random. It was designed specifically to activate in the presence of Xeron weapons. My people had studied your empire for generations. They knew that one day, you would come for them." "They prepared for destruction," Xeron said, understanding dawning. "Yes, but not just to survive it, to transform it. The energy of your weapons was converted, channeled into creation rather than destruction. In a way, Emperor, you were always meant to find me." The implication stunned Xeron. Had the Seraphians somehow known that their destruction would lead to the Empire's transformation? Had they sacrificed themselves for a greater purpose? "There's more," Novalis said, its voice softer now. "The genetic analysis Maya performed when I was still developing. She never showed you the complete results, did she?" "What do you mean?" "My genetic structure contains markers that match your own, Emperor. The Seraphians incorporated genetic material from the royal bloodline, from you, into my creation. In biological terms, I am partly your child." Xeron stared at Novalis in shock. "How is that possible?" "Your empire has spread across the galaxy for generations. Genetic samples aren't difficult to obtain for a civilization dedicated to preservation and study. The Seraphians believed that only by creating a bridge, a being connected to both worlds, could true understanding be achieved." The revelation left Xeron speechless. All this time, he had thought it was random chance that had brought him to witness the stellar birth on Seraphis. Now he understood it had been part of a plan generations in the making. Does Maya know? He finally asked. She suspected from the beginning. Novalis confirmed. It's why she risked everything to preserve me. She saw what the Seraphians intended, a way to transform the Empire not through war, but through connection. In the distance, a ship rose from the spaceport, its lights tracing a path toward the stars, another mission of protection rather than destruction. Xeron watched it go, feeling a sense of purpose that had eluded him throughout his reign of terror. There is so much more to show you, Novalis said, gesturing to the night sky. So many worlds waiting to be discovered, to be protected rather than conquered. Will you come with me to see them? For the first time in his long life, Emperor Xeron felt truly alive. Not with the cold thrill of power, but with the warm anticipation of discovery. Yes, he said simply. I will. As their ship departed the capital world some days later, Maya stood in the observatory deck, watching it shrink to a point of light among countless others. Beside her, the newly reprogrammed Orion AI monitored the departure. Course plotted for the Andromeda sector, Orion reported. The Emperor and Novalis will rendezvous with Prince Elar at the emerging civilization. Maya smiled, thinking of how far they had all come, from destruction to protection, from isolation to connection. The Empire was transforming, healing, becoming something new, just as Novalis had transformed and healed Emperor Xeron himself. She looked up at the star-filled sky, imagining Novalis taking its first steps into a future none of them could have predicted. A future where life was valued above power, where creation was recognized as the true miracle. Safe journey, she whispered to the stars, and new beginnings for us all.